प्रणवाय विश्वोदयस्थितिलयो नियतिप्रदाय ज्ञानप्रदाय विबुधासुरसौख्यदुःखसत्कारणाय वितताय नमो नमस्ते। आसीदुदारगुणवारिधिरप्रमेया नारायणः परतमः परमात्स एकः संशान्तसंविदखिलं जठरे निधाय लक्ष्मीभुजान्तरगतः स्वरतोऽपि चाग्रे तस्योदरस्थजगतः सदमन्दसान्द्रस्वानन्दतुष्टवपुषोऽपि रमारमस्य भूत्यै निजाश्रितजनस्य हि सृज्यसृष्टा वीक्षा बभूव परनामनिमेषकान्ते नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुंश्चागीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधान् गुरूनपि कुर्मः श्रीकृष्णगीतायाः भाष्यादुक्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम् ऊर्ध्वमूलमधः शाखमश्वत्थं प्राहुरव्ययम् छन्दांसि यस्य पर्णानि यस्तं वेद स वेदवित् धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः हरिः ओम् Welcome to the Bhagavad-Gita Pratipadhartha session. Welcome everyone. This is something that we do on a weekly basis. Every Saturday from 8 o'clock for about 90 minutes, we look at as many shlokas as possible and try to break them down into the individual words and try to make sense of what each of those shlokas are trying to mean literally, and then somehow towards the overall context of the conversation happening between Krishna, Arjuna, Sanjaya, Dhritarashtra within this Mahabharata, within the screenplay of Mahabharata, we will try to make a sense of what it tries to say, maybe one aspect of it. The reason why we say one aspect is it is a well-known fact that one understanding of Bhagavad-Gita will never be the complete understanding of the Bhagavad-Gita. To that extent, even 5,000 understandings of Bhagavad-Gita may not be the entire understanding of Bhagavad-Gita because there are more than 5,000 such standard commentaries on Bhagavad-Gita. And even those many granthas put together, those many commentaries put together, and these commentaries are coming from very well learned people, very well accomplished sadhakas of this Bharatavarsha. Despite that many number, it is still, as a collective, they still fall short to perhaps provide the full essence of Bhagavad-Gita. So what we try to do is get the basic understanding, and even that basic understanding may be incomplete because when we look into some of the words and try to look through some of the resources like the Amara Kosha, I would strongly recommend people who are keen, please download an app called Amara Kosha on the Play Store. I know it is available for Android. I'm not too sure whether it's available for the other OS people of the iOS, the Apple OS or some other OSs. But at least in Android Play Store, we have a beautiful app called the Amara Kosha. There is a beautiful app on the Sabda Rupavalli, for the Dhatu Rupa. So there are different apps available. So to begin with, please download this Amara Kosha. When you look at some of the words, like for example, the word called Karana, there are 24 different meanings for the word Karana, right? So, and we have seen that quite often. So even when we make an honest attempt at trying to get the basic word by word meaning, even that might fall short, right? So with all the limitations in mind, let's make as much meaning as possible. One of the Mangala shlokas that I chanted, it says, Geetartham Vakshyami Leshataha. There is only a little we can speak about Gita. Leshataha. There is no Purnataha meaning of Gita that is ever possible by anyone. So with that, so far we have covered till shloka number 68. If you have to really make sense of what all we have heard so far, the first chapter is about Arjuna Vishada. Arjuna Vishada again can be broken down into three parts. The first part where the nervousness was seen even from the Kaurava side. right? And in the nervousness of the Kaurava, they didn't help each other. They further aggravated, right? And then the Pandavas began the show, the Kurukshetra war. The show is the Kurukshetra war, right? The Kurukshetra war happened in a very divine way for the Pandavas. The third aspect is where Arjuna gets into depression. Now, Arjuna's depression is also perhaps broken down into three parts. One is where he starts getting into contemplation, right? With that, he gets into attachment, anger, and then gets into depression. And his transformation can also be looked into three parts. I mean, three is a good number, right? So, the transformation can also be looked at in three parts. The one is the physical condition that he expresses, right? He expresses a lot of good, details around his physical changes. Sidanti mama gatrani, mukham cha parishushati, various things like that. And then he then brings about the concept of dharma, adharma, this kind of a gory war. We are all doing wrong things. We will cause the destruction of the entire family, the bloodlines, all of that. Right? Dharma, adharma, and then naraka. The third aspect is where he confesses to being completely distorted. His buddhi brahmana, right? Completely he's gone. Then the first message from Krishna, again, he gives very three key messages. Again, three is a very beautiful number. Right? He says, well, please get up. What you're trying to do is anaryajushta, aswargyakara, akirtikara. The three aspects perhaps is a beautiful way of looking at our purpose of life. Each one of us will have to strive to become Arya, which is duty bound, Swargakara, go higher and higher and higher, and Kirtikara, establish a good name. This is the purpose of life, right? Shloka number 2 and 3 of the second chapter, puts that down very nicely. And then don't let Kliba, the Napumsakatva, that kills our Purushartha. Purusha is the male masculinity, but also it is the energy which drives us to achieve the purpose of life, right? Purushartha, we call it as Purushartha. So don't let that Kliba, which is anti-Purusha, to seep in, get up and fight. That's the whole point about Krishna's first message. But Krishna, though he delivers it as much direct way as possible, Arjuna is not happy. He further gets into deeper and deeper, moroseness, complete depression. He says, I can't do that. Nayo, I will not fight. That's the final word from Arjuna. And Sanjaya describes him as the crybaby, Vishidantam. Twice he calls Arjuna as Vishidanta. Then Krishna goes on again a longer Bhagavad-Gita discourse from shloka number 11 to shloka number 53 of the second chapter, again broken down into three broad categories. Because now he has to go commensurate to what Arjuna's expressions were, right? So first aspect, he cancels the physicality, all the physical conditions that Arjuna expresses. He says all of these are temporal. They are not permanent. They come and go. The pain, the pleasures, all of these come and go. They are all temporal expressions. Hold on to them. If you bear with them, you are pledging yourself for amritatva, for immortality, for higher and higher abodes. Right? And then he explains a lot of things around the Atma. He doesn't call it as Atma, he calls it as Dehi, Dehinaha, Sharirinaha, different way. But he calls, there is something inside your body and you are beyond the body. And that concept comes out very, very beautifully. Right? And then he cancels this physical, whatever condition that you're ascribing to, they're all temporary. Look at that higher Tattva, the Avinashi, that supreme Paramatma Tattva. Know that Paramatma Tattva, know that Atma is a subset of that Paramatma, then everything is sorted, right? You don't have to really worry. You don't deserve to cry. The first 20 shlokas, as much as he's trying to negate the physical aspect, basically he's trying to reinstill the prajna, reinstill the consciousness in Arjuna, and telling him repeatedly, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. 5 times. 5 shlokas in those 20 shlokas explicitly state, don't cry. Right? And then 10 shlokas after that, shloka number 31 to 40, we hear talking about dharma. Don't talk about kula dharma, jati dharma, sanatana dharma, some broad categories of dharmas. Talk about your own dharma, swadharma, that's more important, right? So the entire message, again, as much as Arjuna spoke about dharma, adharma, causing a lot of destruction to the, all of this society and things like that, and then relegate into Naraka, Krishna brings back the focus. Arjuna, please focus on Swadharma, nothing beyond, very beautifully, and then the advantages of Swadharma. Those 10 shlokas are beautiful in that aspect. Then Arjuna was talking about, I don't know what to do, right? I'm lost, Buddhi Brahmana. The next 13 odd shlokas, from shloka number 41 to shloka number 53, was all about Buddhi Yukta Yoga, right? Buddhi Yukta Nishkama Yoga, whichever we want to call it, Buddhi Yukta, right? Buddhi Yukta is, with a resolute mind, with a firm mind, with a steady mind, whichever way, Samadhi, Samabuddhi, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, Sthira Buddhi, in whichever way, Sthitadhi, there are different words describing the same thing. It's all about that. Now you overcome your mental delusion, the sickness in the mind, with this buddhi of yours. In the samadhi buddhi, you will achieve yoga. That's the final conclusion in shloka number 53. But then Arjuna asks more questions. Okay, in the state of samadhi, sthitadhi, sthita buddhi, sthita prajna, why would a person do anything? Right? You speak about indifference. I know, Shrotavyasa Shutascha, whatever has been heard, whatever is about to be heard, you will show indifference. Why would a person in Chitta Buddhi do anything at all? Right? What are his characteristics? Why would he sit? Why would he walk? Why would he do anything? Right? So very, very practical question. If you are Sthira Buddhi, you shouldn't have any work. Then Arjuna gets a nice answer to all of that. Sthitadhi, Sthira Buddhi. So far, till shloka number 68, we saw how to, kind of control the indulgences coming from the sense organs. Because Arjuna's, for the question from Arjuna, the answer is very simple. Who is a Sita Prajna? One who is contented within himself. Atmanyeva Atmana Tushtaha Saha Sita Prajnaha iti Uchyate. The one who is happy within himself, he is a Sita Prajna. Right? And who is a Sitadhi? Vita Raga Bhayat Krodha, the one who does not let any emotional hijackers like, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. These are the typical hijackers, right? They hijack the attachment, the Krodha, the fear, right? These three things hijack our buddhi, right? These are the mental limitations that we have, right? These are the strongest of the mental limitations. I want to go to a long, onshore trip to fulfill something in my career. No, I don't want to miss my time with my daughter. I don't want to miss the time with my son. Attachment, right? So the attachment, the fear, and the anger are the biggest blocks. The one who can overcome these three, he is a Sitadhi, Sitadhi or Sthirabuddhi, like, Vyavasayatrika Buddhi. The firm intellect is the person who does not let emotions to hijack his path, hijack his resolve, right? But it's all easier said than done. Now, with a lot of difficulty, with a lot of other examples being quoted also, finally, the simplest of the solutions that we get to hear to know how to achieve that state, right? How to achieve that state. One is that, stop contemplation on other things. Sloka number 62, 63 beautifully lays down the root cause of why the prajna, the buddhi can be lost, right? It is the contemplation on unnecessary things. The repeated contemplation on unnecessary things is what will hijack us. Stop that. That's the root cause. Shloka number 62, 63. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangahateshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodha abhijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhi nasha buddhi nasha pranashyati. Not just nasha, pranashyati. Prakarshanena nashyati. Now again, we have been repeatedly speaking, whenever we hear the word nasha, we tend to imagine nasha means annihilation. That's just one form of nasha. So we keep repeating this, and I think we may have to repeat this multiple more times. I think it's the Mahavaraha Purana. We get to hear the definition of nasha. There are four types of nasha that we need to be aware of. Anityatva, Dehahani, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. Right? Anityatva, not being in the current. We all keep on brooding over the past glories or keep on worrying about tomorrow. The nityatva, though it is very commonly used, not well understood. The way I kind of get it, like, not many people understand the word nitya. Nitya is eternally now, always now. The minute I say it, also I am gone into the past. Right? I can't even say that. That's so much now. Anityatva. We all suffer from anityatva. That's one of the nashas. Deha hani, which is well known, like, loss of body, threat to the body, damage to the body. Deha hani. So that's another form of nasha, but just one form of nasha. Third is the dukkha prapti. Whenever we acquire any kind of a sorrowness, that's also nasha. Okay, and apurnata, a feeling of incompleteness. And we have that. We all possess that. There is never a moment that we have enough of everything. We all have a want, want, a more and more want, and so much so that some of these wants sound like needs, right? Apurnata. So whenever we hear the word Nasha, in Bhagavad Gita, we keep hearing the word Nasha, Vinasha, Pranashya, lot of these things. Okay, but eventually we need to bear in mind that Nasha primarily means fourfold. It's not just one, the way we understand, which is annihilation or bodily harm. There are three other aspects: Anityatva, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. Right? Now, the Varaha Purana talks about some more thing like, Nashaha Chaturvidaha Proktaha. There are four types of Nasha being told. Tad Abhavaha Harehe Sada. Only Hari, Shri Hari, Paravan, the Parabrahma, only He is devoid of these four Nasha, all these four types of Nasha. So much so that even Chaturmukha Brahma has one of them. Even Mahalakshmi has one of them. Like Mahalakshmi is never, her deficiency is that she suffers from Apurnatva. Like she is never complete without Narayana, right? So without the Supreme Narayana, Lakshmi is nothing, right? So the Purusha Prakriti, when we see the combination also, the Purusha is needed for Prakriti to express herself and things like that. So Mahalakshmi suffers from that, Apurnata. So it can go deeper and deeper, but primarily everyone suffers, and we so lower down the order of the pecking order, right? We suffer from all four of them all the time, right? All four: Anityatva, Dehahani, Dukkha Prapti, Apurnata. Now, the type of sorrow can be multifold, but the least we can do to be deliberate enough to control them is control the thoughts. The thoughts that keep wavering, keep wandering here and there. And that's what comes as the root cause, right? And that's where just before that he says, offer everything to me, which is bhakti, is the easiest way to kind of, control the wavering thoughts and then get them focused towards one thing. So people who keep chanting Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, repeated, chanting of such things, they will end up, focusing their mind on no other rubbish in this world, right? They just keep focusing their thoughts on only one thing because noise is inevitable. The minute we come to the samsara, noise is inevitable, right? So there are different ways in which people try to control. And I think in the previous session, we spoke about this briefly, and hence I brought in the example. Not that I am telling people to join ISKCON and chant Hare Ram. I mean, it's a good thing. Not that I am promoting this, nor am I, critiquing about it. Just that this thought came up in the last session, so I just want to bring that up again. I am not from ISKCON, nor do I hate them. I mean, I just love for whatever, love the way whatever little they do for the society. And I am not a great devotee of ISKCON, right? So I don't have too much there. But nonetheless, after that, he goes on to explain the concept of prasada and things like that. Finally, we come to the stage where he helps us achieve the sense organs. Like, the final sloka number 68. Okay. Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrihitani sarvasha indriyasyendriya tasya prajna pratishtita. Indriyani indriyateva. So the one who's all the time, in all aspects, one whose indriyas from the sense objects, the objects of experience are completely nigraha, completely controlled. He is a sita prajna. Now we need to understand one thing. Whenever we say one who is controlled, you can't take the sense organs from the sense objects, right? There is no way. The minute I open my eye, I will see something. The question is, will I get affected by what I see, right? Some people can't, like for example, when I open my window, we all have the feeling, oh, I need something nice. Or this is the view. I want this view for my master bedroom, right? If it opens up to a slum, then we have a mental block. Oh, this is a so rice. Like, this is not good, right? So controlling the senses primarily means that, my indulgences stop, right? Can I hear the tranquility of M.S. Subbalakshmi's bhajan in the rock music that goes, right? So that's what happens, right? So when I say stop my senses, on the sense objects, I can't stop it. If there is a rock music being played in the background, I will have to hear it out. But the question is, will I be able to stop my indulgences on it? My natural indulgence on the rock music could be to do head banging. Can I stop that? Or my natural tendency on the rock music could be to cry out on pull my hair. Oh, what kind of a noise is this? Right? Can I avoid that? Both are, getting indulgent. I know both the reactions to a rock music can be indulgent. Like, when Carnatic classical music is going on, some people might find it as, wow, so divine, so serene music. Some people might say, "Oh, yawning, such a boring music. No, why are they doing endless amount of alapana?" Right? So the music is the same. My indulgences is what drives me, right? I mean, whether I hate it, I like it, I keep on repeatedly listening to it in loops. All these things are indulgences. So the controlling the indriyas primarily means I can't take my indriyas off the objects. The only thing I can do is, can I stop the indulgences, whatever way I kind of, get my emotions, either pumped up or withdrawn. Like, my emotions need to be kept under check, because jnanendriya need to serve the purpose for which they are, which is provide me the jnana, make me discerning, okay, rather than get me indulgent, right? And towards that extent is where we move on now when we look into the shloka number 69, right? Shloka number 69, you have the web link out here. I think the web link takes us to the same shloka. Hmm. Correct. So the shloka reads like this: Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. So Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato munehe. If you scroll down a little bit on that web page, you will see a section called the Padacheda. Now, what this does is basically it breaks down the entire shloka into individual words. Because our session is word by word breakdown, right? So we are interested in this. So, Ya, Nisha, Sarva Bhutana, Tasyam, Jagarti, Sanyami, Yasyam, Jagrati, Bhutani, Sa, Nisha, Pashyatah Munehe. That is the only sandhi in this. Pashyatah Munehe becomes Pashyato Munehe. Right? That's the only sandhi. Now we got the individual words of the shloka. We need to jumble them. Like we need to. This is jumbled up, so we need to put them back in the order in which it can perhaps sound like a sentence. So look at the section just above the Padacheda called the Anvaya. Anvaya is where we see the shlokas in the prose order. So in the prose order, it reads like this: Sarva Bhutanam Yanisha Sanyami Tasyam Jagarti. Yasyam Bhutani Jagrati Pashyatah Munehe Sa Nishaha. What kind of an impression does it give? I mean, we heard the sentence in Sanskrit, but let us make sense of it. For that, we need to click on the top. There is a link called the dictionary. So when you click on the link called the dictionary, it gives us the meaning, right? Word by word meaning along the Anvaya, along the order of the Anvaya, the prose order. It says, Sarva Bhutana, of all the living beings, to all the living beings. Okay. Ya Nisha, what is night? What is night for all living beings? Sanyami Tasyam Jagrati. The Sanyat Yami, Samyak Yami, well controlled person, the self mastering stage. So Yama is controlled, right? Samyak is well, very well. So Sanyami is well controlled person, the Muni, the yogi. Tasyam, in that Jagrati, he stays awake. Yasyam Bhutani Jagrati, in which all the living beings are awake, all creatures are awake, right? Pashyatah Munehe, the enlightened or the well discerning Muni sage. Muni has a lot of mana in it, right? The one who controls the mana. Pashyatah Munehe, for in the well seeing Muni, Sa Nisha, for a well seeing in a well seeing, well discerning Muni, it is night. That is night, right? What kind of an impression does it give? Let's go back and see Aurobindo interpretation. You have to click back on the link or the shloka on the top just next to dictionary. On down, if you scroll down a little bit, we will see Aurobindo interpretation. It says, that which is to all creatures a night is to the self-mastering sage his waking time, or his luminous day of true knowledge. The life of the dualities which is to them their waking, okay, is a night, okay, to the sage who sees. There are multiple things in the brackets also. Let's try to make sense. So the one that is night to all creatures, okay, let me read back the Anvaya. Sarva Bhutanam Yanisha what is night to all creatures, Sanyami Tasyam Jagrati. The well-controlled Muni stays awake in it. Yasyam Bhutani Jagrati, where all living beings are awake, Pashyatah Munehe Sanisha. For a well-seeing Muni, it is night, right? So this is one of those vexing shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, but let's make sense of it. Where every living creature is sleeping, Yanisha, right? Where every other living creature is finding as darkness. Darkness can be looked at as the time when we sleep. Darkness can be looked at as andatamas, ignorance. There are two connotations that we can draw. I'm sure there are many more connotations. In my limited capacity and for the paucity of time, let me only bring about two. So literally it can mean the night where we sleep, or literally we can say andatamas, nisha, is also the significance drawn to the tamas, the ignorance, where people are ignorant, okay, or when people are sleeping, okay. Sanyami tasyam jagrati. A well-controlling muni, a well-controlling yogi stays awake there. So literal sense, right? When we look into some of those Shaolin movies, we get to see that the protagonist will be appearing to be sleeping, but suddenly one small creak of the door, he suddenly wakes up. Everyone else is snoring to glory, but this guy wakes up, right? And suddenly one 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 whiff of air kind of moves off. For that also the Muni kind of a guy, the well controlled person, he wakes up. So they have very alert senses, right? The senses don't go weak. That's one way of looking at it. For a guy for a person who is well controlled as a yogi, his senses remain very very sharp, and this is not unheard of. Like as close to our own households, we will all know of that mother, that grandmother, that aunt who has that ability to wake up in the middle of the night because of by the sound of some footsteps on the street. Suddenly somebody walks on the road, they will wake up. They are so alert, right? Their senses are so very well trained, which means this indriyas remain to be the jnanendriya. That's the primary name, right? The indriyas are called the jnanendriyas. The second thing to notice, when all living beings, most of the ordinary living beings are ignorant, right? Like for example, people go to the concert. Simple example again, the example of the concert. Some people are headbanging to rock music, and some people are crying out loud to the rock music. Okay, which is both of them are ignorant, right? They both don't know. Like basically we all need to, like when you go to the Silk Board traffic in Bangalore, there is a very famous place called the Silk Board Junction. Everyone is honking like a mad rush. Like it's a mad place. Like people will really literally go mad. Silk Board, Marathalli. I think you can do some Google check on that. Hebal flyover. There are some 2, 3 iconic places in Bangalore. Like if you really want a mental therapy, you have to take the car to those places, right? Any car, like to those places. That's the mental therapy. If we can stay without honking for 2 kilometers before the junction and after the junction, I think we would have achieved some bit of yoga, right? Those are amazing places. Okay, they're therapeutic places. I think we should go there, right? So the problem with those places is everyone is honking, everyone is trying to outsmart the other person, and everyone is blaming the other person. Everyone else is an idiot except me. And that's the kind of a scene that we get to see there, right? So everyone is ignorant because everyone is getting frustrated because of the traffic. Everyone is wondering why are so many people on the road. They having discounted themselves in, right? So that's the kind of a place it is. So where people are ignorant, the Sayami is knowledgeable. He is awake. Awake means he's prakasha, right? He's knowledgeable, which means when the senses are going behind indulgences, the Sayami, the well-controlled person, he uses the indriyas for the sake of knowledge, nothing else. Like the wine taster cannot go indulgent on wine drinking, right? He has to just let the taste buds feel what is needed, draw the information, make the inferences, move on, right? Most of the time, the connoisseurs of chocolate, connoisseurs of wine, they spit it out. They don't really consume it, right? That's the kind of a thing. Even when we look at the cooks who cook food in big functions like the wedding and all, they just take the taste to for a discerning purpose, nothing beyond, right? They do it only for the discernment purpose, right? So when people go indulgent, when people are ignorant, when people are sleeping in the night, in that the Muni finds the day, in that Muni finds the knowledge, the Muni finds the enlightenment. Where people find the day, the second part, Yasyam Bhutani Jagrati, where people are awake, right? Now, awake can also mean that, we are obviously, when we are awake, we are in the samsara. And samsara obviously means there is duality of happiness, sorrows, again, indulgences, right? So, having controlled indriyas, which is what was the theme until the previous shloka, this shloka provides a nice summary. A person who has controlled the indriya does not get indulgent. When people are asleep, he has the alertness. When people are ignorant, he is knowledgeable. And when people go indulgent, he will stay away. Like, Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani, when people are indulgent, when people are reacting to the sukha, dukkha, and things like that, he finds it as nisha. He stays an arm's distance away from them. He does not get them, intrude into his mind space and ruffle his mind. Right? He stays unflustered in that kind of a situation. Right? So that's one of the way we can look at this meaning. So when you look at this again, right, that which is to all creatures a night is the waking luminous day to the self-mastering stage, and the life in which all creatures are awake, okay, is the night for the sage who is seeing it well. Okay, pashyatah, like some pashyatah munehe, who sees it very nicely. Any questions? I mean, do come up on the stage. We would like to hear multiple other perspectives as well. If there are other, if you're repeating the same thing, then perhaps we should not do that. But if there are other perspectives, please ping for the mic access, come up on the stage. This is a joint study that we do. I'm only taking the lead in terms of reading through the scripture and then perhaps giving my 2 cents around it. Need not be the final opinion. So please to come up. We do love to hear it. We do want this to be a combined study. But in the meanwhile, we will move on. I think the hand raising option is open. If anybody is interested, please do ping for the mic access and come up on the stage. I'm sure the moderators would love to have you here. We move on now. On the top of the screen, we have the link called the next, and we click on that. When we click on the next, we move on to shloka number 70. It reads like this. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudramapah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudramapah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kama kami. So this is about kama, right? So let's look at the padacheda. Scroll down a little bit. We get to hear padacheda. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudram apah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamaah yam pravishanti sarve sah shantim apnoti na kama kami. There are only two sandhis in this. In both the sandhis, we see the visarga disappearing. Visarga lopa, like kamaha yam becomes kamayam, and saha shantim becomes sashantim. These are the only two sandhis. So again, visarga goes through 5 different modifications. One of them is lopa, right? Predominantly 5 different visarga modifications, sandhis, and here it is lopa, disappears, right? So we got the padacheda. Let's put them back in the prose order. We'll read the anvaya. Yadvat आपः आपूर्यमाणम् अचल प्रतिष्ठं समुद्रं प्रविशन्ति तद्वत् सर्वे कामाः यं प्रविशन्ति सः शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी. What kind of an impression does it give? Yadvat apaha, right? We go to the dictionary, just like how the water, yadvat apaha, apa is water, just like the water. Here it is river water, right? Yadvat apaha, just like the water. Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudram pravishanti. The samudra, which is apuryamana, okay, which is filled to the brim. Okay, achala pratistam, no, stays without any motion, without any movement, right? So pravishanti enters that, just like how the waters enter the ocean, which is filled to the brim and unmoving, right? kama, all the desires, yam pravishanti, they enter in whom, like, who, just like who, the person who is already filled to the brim in his contentment and unmoving, right? Which is basically not getting swayed by the experiences of the indriyas, not having a want, right? Having that. So, apuryamanam, achala pratistham is basically somebody who doesn't get swayed by the indriyas and one who doesn't have wants. Atmanyevatmana tushta, right? When kamas enter such a person, okay, that person, saha, he shanti mapnoti, he acquires shanti, he attains shanti, na kama kami, not the one who goes behind fulfilling the kama, one after the other. Right? The Kamakami, not the one who is disturbed by every little inrush of desire or who is always behind fulfilling the desire. Right? So, very beautiful. Couple of things around this shloka, but before that, let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. So, click back on the shloka, link can come down, and scroll down, you see the Sri Aurobindo interpretation. He attains peace in whom all desires enter, just like how the waters enter into the sea, right? Which is the sea, which is ever being filled and yet ever motionless. Not he who is disturbed by every little inrush of desire. Right? Very beautiful shloka. Now, what it does is primarily explains a little more clearly. See, when we come back to the question of Sita Prajnata, that's the question of Arjuna that is being answered, right? Shloka number 55 is the question, and 54 is the question, and 55 of this chapter is where Krishna answers what is Sita Prajna. Behind, like he says, Prajahati yada kaman. Okay, Sarvan kaman, Sarvan manogatan kaman yada prajahati. When you overcome, when you kill all the kamas, all the desires that enter your manas, okay, Atmanyevatmana tushtaha, and remain happy, content within. Okay, Sita Prajna Satochita. Then you will be called a Sita Prajna. Very beautiful, simple definition, right? The definitions are very easy. Becoming one is the most difficult, and nobody can become, at least in the state. I mean, I haven't seen many. I haven't seen any, rather, not with many. I haven't seen any who is a Sita Prajna. We all have desires, but it's good to have the target of where we aspire to be. In my school days, some of the teachers used to say, if you really want to climb the top of the tree, aim at the skies. Now, aim at the skies is what we do, right? So, what it says is kill the kama. But here he explains very clearly, right? Kama has to be overcome by keeping ourselves content, right? You can't really get rid of kama, right? Because whether the ocean likes it or not, the river enters, the water enters from the cloud directly into the sea, it will fall. The ocean cannot stop that phenomena, and the rivers will invariably enter the sea. The ocean cannot stop that phenomena. And the rivers don't just enter. Sometimes they enter with a flooded fury. Sometimes they are completely dried up. And many a times they are also in their natural course. Right? Rivers, there are three types of river flow, right? Completely dried up river also. Overflowing river also enters the sea. And then normal course of the river also enters the sea. Right? Despite whatever is the way in which the river water enters the sea, the sea remains completely unmoved. Overflowing river, let it be. Dried up river, let it be. A normal river, let it be. Okay. So when we look into some of the other messages that have come through, that you surrender unto me. I think shloka number 61 talks about that. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha. Stay focused on me, which is be my bhakta. Right. So that's the first instance of bhakti being propounded in Bhagavad-Gita, shloka number 61 of this chapter. When we look at that, bhakti makes us completely content. Right? So one of the easiest ways in which we can make ourselves content, and there could be different other ways also, but so long as we understand the technique in which we can keep ourselves content like the sea, like the ocean, which already has the feeling sense of contentment, completeness, and unmoving kind of a nature. With that kind of a state, being completely unmoved, let the desires come and go. Right? We will not really be bothered about them. So the way to kill the kama, that was explained in Shloka number 55 as part of his first reaction to answer the state of Shata Prajna. Kama, he is addressing it now. Because earlier he defined how Kama comes. Here he directly addresses how Kama has to be addressed. Right? Kama can be killed not by constantly going behind them or by constantly curbing them. You have to run a different race altogether. You have to fight a different battle altogether. Keep yourself content. Right? Kama will automatically be in its own without troubling me. That's the basic thing. Right? So that's the interpretation we get to see. A very beautiful shloka when we keep on repeatedly contemplating on this. The simile drawn here is also very beautiful. We have to grow like the ocean, completely content and completely unmoved. Then we don't even need to bother about karma. Let karma come, let karma go. Let's not go behind fulfilling them. Right? We will fulfill them, but we will see, in other ways, but not really going behind fulfilling one after the other, one after the other one. There is no end to it, right? There is no end to how much we can keep on fulfilling them. So then he answers finally, right? The next shloka, shloka number 75, on the top we click on the link next, right? So we go to shloka number 71. Vihaya kaman yas sarvan pumanscharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankaraha saha shanti madhigacchati. So Vihaya kamanya sarva pumanscharati nispraha nirmamo nirahankara sashanti madhigacchati. So the padacheda goes like this. Vihaya kaman yah sarvan puman charati nispraha nirmamaha nirahankara nirmamo nirahankara. Right? So there is one sandhi. Saha shanti sashantim adhigacchati. So there are two sandhis here, both visarga related. But yeah, one in which visarga becomes guna, visarga becomes okara, and in another visarga goes missing, goes lopa. So let's see the anvaya, the prose order. It reads like this. Yaha puman sarvan kaman vihaya nirmamaha nirahankaraha nispraha charati saha shanti madhigacchati. See, twice, second time he is talking about shanti. Because sometime back, I think shloka number 65 or odd, he speaks about without shanti where is sukha. Ashantasya kutah sukham. There is no sukha without shanti. Now he is bringing the concept of shanti. Right? This is and shanti, you see, this is something we all need to be a little more deliberate and little more aware. In today's context, we get to see that do peg pila re shant ho jayega. That is not shanti, right? That is tamas. Right? Shanti is where the shamatva, shama, there is a lot of shama, control, restraint has happened. Not like do peg pila shant ho jayega. That should be kept away, right? Today, unfortunately, the society gets into these kind of talks. Okay, the minute we talk about Gita, they say, "Oh, sab moh maya hai Prabhu." Like shanti pilade. All the rubbish. Somewhere we need to keep an arm's distance away from them. Let's take them for what they mean, and this is where tools like the Amara Kosha help. When we look into shanti, shanti comes from sham. Sham is very much needed in the state of shanti. Right? Who attains shanti? Okay, yaha puman sarvan kaman vihaya nirmamaha nirahankaraha nispraha charati saha eva shanti madhigacchati. Right? What does it mean? We have to, for that, we have to click on the link called dictionary. Right? When we click on dictionary, we get to see that Yaha Puman, the man, Puman is man, right? Yaha Puman, the man who Sarvan Kaman Vihaya, okay, having given up, okay, all different karma, right? And how to give up the karma? By being content. Don't work on the karma, work on yourself, right? So, Saha Puman, Yaha Puman, Yaha Sarvan Kama Vihaya, the one who has given up all his karma. And Nirmamaha Nirahankaraha Nispraha Charati. Without any mamakara, without any ahankara, without any spriha, walks. Charati, goes around doing all the work. Like charati doesn't mean that you run away. You stay in the samsara, you stay in the activities, you stay in the thick of the action, the thick action, right? Don't run away from action, don't run away from duty, but stay without mamakara. Mama is mine, ahankara, I. The mine and I are two distinctive senses brought in here. The mama means these are my people. Stop that. Ahankara, I did it. Stop that. Spruha, oh, I need this, I need that. No, stop that. Right? Without any such mamakara, ahankara, or spruha, the one who does all the work, charati, saha shanti madi. Gachati. He is the one who attains the shanti. Again, linking back to a couple of questions, right? One is the state of the prajnata, but the fundamental from question has been question from Arjuna has been, what is it that gives me Shreyaskara? You attain Shanti by doing things without any mamakara, ahankara, spriha, and get rid of all your kama, right? Because Arjuna wants the kingdom. Arjuna wants also the people to be next to him. And he doesn't want just the kingdom. Without the people. The one who have come to the war, he wants them also. At least that's the state in the first chapter. Right? So stop that. Do your duty. And it's not the war that was the first. Option. War could have been the option even before the Vana Parva. During Vana Parva, the same Arjuna and Bhima, along with Bhima, went on pestering Yudhishthira. Brother, give us the ajna. We will go and kill them all. Right? Yudhishthira said, no, 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 no. Until Krishna's approval came, he never went for anything. Right? So, and Krishna finally went till the last straw. I mean, he kept on looking at various different permutation combination of, avoiding the war. This became eventuality, inevitable at the end of it all. When those 5 villages were also denied, that is where we are in this. So do without mamakara, do without ahankara, do without spruha, do it as a duty, right? And do it as a Bhagavad Karya, even better. Okay, you already fill yourself with Bhagavad Chintana. That's something that he's spoken about, right? So that is so. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says for this before we click on next, right? So Aurobindo interpretation says, the one who abandons all desires and lives and acts free from longing, who has no I or mind, okay, giving up the ego, he attains the great peace. Again, the Shanti is called the great peace, Parashanti. Let it be, but Shanti is Shanti, right? So there are people who try to draw the distinction between Shanti and the Parashanti. That's okay. Now we will move on to next. Right? This is beautiful, right? So come on the next. I think we conclude the second chapter. Esha brahmi stitih partha nayanam prapya vimuhyati stitva syamantakaalepi brahma nirvanam richati. Esha brahmi stitih partha nayanam prapya vimuhyati stitva syamantakaalepi brahma nirvanam richati. What does the Padacheda sound like? Esha brahmi stitihi partha na enam prapya vimuhyati. One sandhi there. Na enam becomes nainam. Vriddhi sandhi. Like eka, eka, ekaika. Stitva. Stitva asyam antakale api antakale iti. Brahma nirvanam richati. Right? What does the Anvaya sound like? Hey Partha. Esha brahmi stitihi. Enam prapya na vimuhyati. Antakale api asyam stitva Brahma nirvanam richati. What does it mean? For that we need to click on dictionary. When we click on dictionary, hey Partha, O son of Pritha, O Arjuna, Esha Brahmi Sthiti. This is Brahmi Sthiti. The state itself is Brahmi Sthiti, right? Giving up all the kama, without mamakara, ahankara, nispraha, right? The state itself is Brahmi Sthiti, right? Enam prapya, by attaining this, na vimuhyati, you will not be bewildered, delusional. Antakaleti, even in the last minute, even in the end, api, also. Asyam titva, having stood there, having acquired that state, right? Having achieved that state. Brahma nirvanam, the state of Brahma nirvana, richati, you will attain, you will get, right? So, Brahma nirvana, I think the extinction in the Brahma. Nice. It's a nice one, but we need to make sense of them, what they are. So basically, it says, concludes, Krishna concludes, which means get up and fight, right? Charati, nispriha charati, go do your work. That was told in the previous shloka itself. And now he says, in the Antakala, so Kurukshetra is the Antakala, right? It's a curtain raiser to the end. And people say that, this is already Dwapara Yuga. We are already in Kali Yuga, right? This is the what do you call, the cusp between the two yugas, right? This is the Sandhya Kala of the yugas. So Kurukshetra is happening at that last minute. This is the Antakala, right? Which is A, yuga is coming to an end. B, many people are about to die. Like a lot of things, have their connotation when we see the Antakala, right? But nonetheless, what Krishna is telling you, oh Partha, this is Brahmacity. Okay, you achieve this, you will never be bewildered. Even in the 11th hour, even in your final few moments, if you acquire this, if you come to this, okay, you will attain Brahma Nirvana. And Brahma Nirvana, when we hear the word, I think we have our own Rudi Artha, right? The standard practice to understand Nirvana is somebody who's liberated, somebody who's attained moksha. Nirvana, people see that, right? You get into this funny looking Padmasana pose and try to appear like levitating, right? So that's also Nirvana. But see, let's understand one thing. Vana means kosha. Again, this is where Amara Kosha helps, right? Vana means body. Nirvana is bodilessness. And this is something that we need to contemplate a little more. And Brahma is Brihatvat Brahma. One that is big, the all-encompassing, the big one, right? Briha, like like the big shelter. Like, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahma, right? We can perhaps be able to see little bit of that Brahma through the sun that we see. We can perhaps be able to see a little bit of that Brahma through the rain that we see, through the flowers that we see. Like, there are many things that will help us see a little bit about the Brahma. But Brahma is beyond all of this, right? Brahma is all encompassing on and beyond. So, so Brahma is the supreme. This entire Jagat is him and beyond, right? The gunas, all the gunas that we know and that we don't know, that is him. The- So, technically, it becomes much easier then to understand Brahma. Brahma is everything. So, in that bodilessness, beyond the body, like, beyond this material body, because we are forever, right? Uh, that's what he says. Tatvevaham jatunasam, shloka number 12 and all. We are much beyond the body. The very fact that we call this as my body, which means that me and the body are distinct. We all, even a small baby says, "Oh, this is my hand," which is he is different to the hand that he is showing, right? This is my eye, which means he is different to the eye that he is showing. So all of these eyes, ears could be part of me for now, but I am much beyond all of this, right? So this is exactly what Krishna is telling. Brahma Nirvana is that in that bodilessness, beyond the body kind of a Brahma as part of him, we will acquire that Brahmicity. Right? Brahmicity is being one in that absolute pure sense. In the lower sense, in the very bhautic sense, I think one thing we need to understand is that the Brahma Nirvana is the giving up the close connection that we have, close attachment that we have for the bodily well-being. Like, we are too much into bodily well-being, right? When we look at ourselves in a little more closer way, we are not just bothered about my next meal. We have taken care of my next to next meal, my tomorrow's meals, my day after's meals, my meals 10 years down the line. I think many people can survive for a few years without having to work anything, right? So much of savings we have done, so much of holding we have done. And we can call it as mutual fund savings or stock market savings or whatever, but it's the saving, it's a food security that we have all worked towards. No, not just my food security, my my children's food security, my grandchildren's food security. There are some people who perhaps for the next 10 generations, if they don't have to work, so much of security, and security is a virtue, right? You have to feel secure. When you look at the Western way of looking at the hierarchy of needs, the social security are the basics. They are the fundamental ones. They are the lower strata of the needs, right? Not that they are bad; they are needed. But one thing that we quite often hear in every aspect, even including in the Western senses, wherever we have to earn greatness, achieve greatness, we have to move out of the comfort zone, right? That's something that we constantly hear. And comfort zone is nothing but being safe and secure in the comfort zone, right? In the physical well-being, like, my food is guaranteed. The minute I want to shake it up, then I'm moving out of the comfort zone. I really may have to struggle a little more for the next meal, right? I may have to struggle a little more for the kind of taste I need in the next meal. Like, that is away from the comfort zone. Comfort zone is where everything is set and everything is predictable, and there is no worry for the meal, for the physical well-being, right? It's all set. I know where I'm going to sleep in the night. I know where I'm going to, what I'm going to eat. What's going to be the taste of that. I know the kind of people that I'm going to meet, the kind of interactions I will have. So all of this is comfort zone. And we keep hearing wherever, the greatest of the stories of the people who have achieved greatness, we keep hearing that, if you really want to achieve something really great, move away from the comfort zone, right? In terms of our quitting of jobs also, people say that, no, when you get too comfortable in one place, you perhaps will have to retrospectively see and what exactly are the changes, and then maybe you need to seek a change, right? People keep telling that. So Brahma Nirvana can also mean that, right? You go beyond the close attachment that we all have for our physical well-being and be one with the divine supreme consciousness. Really want to achieve something. So without mamakara, without ahankara, without additional spruha, without longing for anything, you keep on doing your work. Like, So much so that you don't even bother about your own well-being, like Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. This is something that he mentioned earlier. This state is the Brahmisthiti, where you will be one with Brahma. And if you stay there, even in your last minute, you would have achieved that Brahma Padavi, like Brahma Pada, like you would have achieved that oneness with Brahma, absolute Brahma. So that's the kind of a meaning that I kind of draw. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says for this. We need to further need to click back on the shloka and scroll down. It says, "This is Brahmi City, O Partha." Okay, having attained there to one is not bewildered, fixed in that status, even in the end, at his end, one can attain, one can attain to extinction in the Brahma. Right? Now, why is he saying this? The question is, what is Sthita Prajna? What is Sthitadhi? So, Sthita Prajna, Sthitadhi, at the end of the day, this is Brahmi Sthiti. Right? You are actually becoming one with Brahma, right? In that state. Be there. So in all of these things, one thing that comes implied is get up and fight. That goes without saying. Right? So that's where we are. So this brings us to the conclusion of the second chapter. Just a quick recap. I think in the Sthita Prajna state, very nicely Krishna explains who is a Sthita Prajna, but the definition is easier than being one. And he says why. The weakness of the Indriyas and the Manas, and the Indriyas being extremely turbulent, and the Manas can easily get swayed away. With Manas getting swayed away, the Prajna can get lost, the Buddhi can get lost. The more we contemplate on different unnecessary things in the Kamana kind of a world, we will be completely ruined. So offer everything to me. Take whatever comes your way as prasada. Be Buddhi Yukta, right? Have your bhavana intact. Get the peace of mind through that, and that is what gives you will Shanti. Right? If you go behind the senses, even one sense, you will be completely destroyed. Control your senses. Use them for what they are worth in terms of giving you jnana. And with that jnana, when everyone is sleeping, you stay awake. And when everyone is indulgent, you keep an arm's distance away. Kama comes and goes like how the rivers enter the ocean. You remain completely filled to the brim and completely unmoving. When the kamas enter you in that kind of a state, you have shanti. Without mamakara, without ahankara, without spruha, do your work, get rid of your kama. You will attain peace. And this is Brahmicity. Okay, in this state, you cannot get bewildered. Like I am one with the Supreme Being. If you can get that thought in correctly, if you can realize that thought in correctly, even in the last minute, even in the 11th hour, even in your dying moments, you will attain Brahma Nirvana. Harihi Om Tat Sat. That's the end of Sankhya Yoga. Basically, Sankhya is coming out of Sankhya, right? Sankhya is number. The basic meaning of the word Sankhya is number. So Sankhya is being extremely analytical. So when we say analytical, right, we have to keep an arm's distance away, more than meets the eye. Dispassionate analysis, all of these things that we hear so often in our world, right? When we observe closely, what Krishna primarily has done to Arjuna in this entire discourse is be an observer. Sankhya typically is also associated with another word called Darshana, Sankhya Darshana. Be an observer. To that extent, even use your Indriya to help you attain the Jnana than get you indulgent, right? Oh, ice cream so nice. Be an observer, be a discerning person. Don't go behind hogging ice cream on a binge basis, right? So stop there. So that's the whole thing. Karma will come, but you be like a full ocean who's watching everything silently without mamakara, ahankara, spruha. So when we look at all of this, right, be a darshanakara. Slowly move away from being the indulgent pig in the slush. Move away, and then you can somehow be an observer. Be an observer of what's happening, including what's happening with your body, because all of these are temporal. If you can know what's happening in your body, that all of these things are temporary in nature, you have pledged yourself for the Amritattva. That's exactly what he's spoken. And throughout this, when we link back to the second shloka of the Purushottama Yoga, Adhaha cha urdhvam prasritaha tasya chaka. From the lowest of the tattvas to the highest of the tattvas, the branches are completely spread out. The lowest of the tattvas are the Pancha Mahabhuta, Pancha Tanmatra, Pancha Indriyas, Jnanendriyas, and the Pancha Karmendriyas. The agony, the dismay, the physical pain that Arjuna explained were down to do with the bottom 20 tattvas. But urdhva, adaha cha urdhvam also, the shakas are prasutaha. The urdhva, on the top is the Bhagavan himself. Urdhva moolam, the source of everything is the urdhva on the top. Look at that avinashitu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam. Like that Brahma, look at that Brahma from which everything has come down. If you really understand all of that, in between comes your manas, buddhi and the ahankara. Control them, right? Be buddhi yukta, keep the manas kamas away, keep the ahankaras at an arm's distance away, right? If you achieve this, be one with Brahma. So beautifully, there are many attractions. Vishaya prabalaha, there are many attractions. Adahacha mulani anusantatani, like even deep down there are very deep roots. Don't bother about them. This is all karma bandha. Look at the one that is right at the top. Right? That is what the first sloka also says. Ur-samoolam adahashakam. So we can always link back to what is spoken in each of the chapters to the respective sloka of the Purushottama Yoga. With that, now we move on to the next chapter. We have another half an hour. We can quickly look at more. On the top in the web link itself, you can perhaps change it to 3/1 instead of 2/72. You will directly move on to the first sloka of the third chapter. This is basically Arjuna Uvacha, right? Now, whenever Bhagavan Uvacha has come to a conclusion, it means we have completed one more round of Bhagavad-Gita. So far we have covered 3 rounds of Bhagavad-Gita. Shloka number 2 and 3 in the second chapter. Only 2 shlokas, Bhagavan gives the full message for Arjuna to get up and fight. Next, between shlokas 11 and 53, those 42 shlokas are another full Bhagavad-Gita. Bhagavan is telling Arjuna, get up and fight after having explained everything. Then 18 shlokas, right? Shloka number 55 to shloka number 72. Those 18 shlokas are the third Bhagavad-Gita round. Completely come to a closure, right? Which means Bhagavan has given the information. Arjuna has to get up and fight. But no, Arjuna being Arjuna, an amazing student, he has more questions, and that's the beauty of this company that we are keeping with him, right? We are all his classmates in this the discourse called the Gita. Let us see what his questions are. And this is our experience, right? Because we can't ask Bhagavan the question. We have to enjoy the questions asked by Arjuna because he is the best student that we have. So Arjuna has a question, right? Let's see what Arjuna says. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore ma niyojayasi keshava. Jayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore ma niyojayasi keshava. What does the Padacheda say? Scroll down a little bit on this web page. We see a section called Padacheda. Arjuna Uvacha. That becomes Arjuna Uvacha. That Visarga goes missing, right? It's a Sandhi where Visarga Lopa happens. Jayasi Chet Karmanaha Te Mata Buddhihi Janardana Buddhir Janardana. So Visarga becomes Repa. Visarga Repa Sandhi. Buddhir Janardana Tat Kim Karmani Ghore Mam Niyojayasi Keshava. Right? What does it mean? We have to put them into the prose order. In the Anmaya section right on top, you see Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna says, Hey Janardana, Buddhihi Karmanaha Jayasi Iti Te Mata Chet. Iti is something that I just added, but Buddhihi Karmanaha Jayasi Te Mata Chet Tat He Keshava Mam Ghore Karmani Kim Niyojayasi? Question mark. So Arjuna is asking a question. Let's try to make sense of what this question is. For that, we need to go on top and click on the link called dictionary. Right? The dictionary says Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna says now. Right? Hey Janardana. Oh Janardana. Janardana is Janana Mardayati. I think we looked into this, right? So, because he is promoting him the war. So Janana Mardayati is the one who destroys the people, right? Human race. Because at the end of the Pralaya Kala, that's what Bhagavan does. Like how when we go to the beach and make sand castle, Bhagavan has also done this creation. Then we play in the sand castle. Bhagavan is helping us all play. And then before we go home after the sunset, we all kick our feet, right, on the sand castle and bring it all down. Bhagavan will do the same thing. So he is the Janardana. At the end of the Yuga, everything will go for a toss, right? Hey Janardana, oh O Janardana, who's Janana Mardana. Like, no? Buddhi karmanaha jayasi. Buddhi is better than karma. Buddhi is karmanaha, from karma jayasi. Right? Is greater. Te mata ched. Your opinion is, if your opinion is that buddhi is better than karma, O Janardana, O Keshava, tat then Mam Gore Karmani Kim Niyojasi. Why are you pushing me to this Gora, gory, like morbid kind of an action? Terrible, right? Terrible work. Why are you pushing me to this kind of a work? O Keshava. Keshava again, right? Ka Ishava. So I think there are different ways of looking at it. One is he's definitely, of course, the Keshi demon. There's a demon called Keshi. He slayed that. But Ka is Chaturmukha Brahma. Isha is Rudradeva, worshipped by. So there are different ways in which we can see them. So he's asking a question. So please help me, boss. Like you're the boss. Help me understand why are you pushing me to this morbid kind of an act, the great war, while you also say that uh, karmanaha buddhihi jayasi. Okay, that from action buddhi is better. Now Arjuna sounds like a stupid person, but he's not, right? He's a great jnani. He's a great guy. He's much better than most of us. Now the background to this obviously is that there are a couple of shlokas when we look at them in isolation. Perhaps we get this inclination. I think shloka number 47. There is a famous shloka, right? Karmanye vadikaras. In that shloka, he says, Mate sangaha astu akarmani. Right? He says, don't stay attached to akarma. Right? But before that, he says, I think shloka number 38 or 39, he says, Buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasasi. If you stay fixed in buddhi, you will overcome the karma bandha. Right? All the attachments of the karma. You will overcome all of that. Then in shloka number 48 or all, he says, Yogastaha kuru karmani. Right? He says in shloka number 48, he says, Yogastaha kuru karmani. Do your work, in the city of yoga. But I think in the very next shloka, shloka number 49, he says, Durena hi avaram karma buddhi yoga. Durena, by far, hi avaram is inferior. Karma is by great margin inferior to buddhi yoga. Hence, you buddho sharanam anvisha. You please surrender to buddhi. So, somewhere, right, it's kind of, mixed up the way it's appearing. So, Arjuna is asking the question, hey, Janardana, buddhi karmanaha jayasi. If you, iti te mataha chet, like, if you think that buddhi is greater than karma, then why are you pushing me to this morbid way? Not even a karma. You're engaging me in a very, very nasty work, karma, right? Couple of things. See, he is under bewildered state, and he has already got the inclination that no, I will give up this war. Na yodhye is something that came from Arjuna. And then he also has mentioned, I think, shloka number 4 or 5 of the second chapter. He says, better than this war, I will take up to the woods. I will take up the asceticism and start begging for my livelihood. That is better for me. He has made his own proclamation. I will do that. That's only better. So somewhere his inclination is still to run away from the war. And whenever somebody is trying to coach us, counsel us to take up an alternative path than what we are now more inclined towards, I think we all carry that bias that we are already tilting towards that side. So there are two things that we need to note about Arjuna here. A, he is naturally tilted on that side. Not that he is ajnani, but he has a bias towards towards giving up the war and take to the woods, do the bhiksha for a livelihood. Okay, so being a sannyasi, being a jnana yogi, being a sankhya kind of a person, that is something he has already got inclined towards. Okay, in the events that we have seen so far, so he has a bias towards that is one aspect. But also when we look at the messages from Krishna, while he has given amazing set of information, when we look at them, when we study them in the way we are doing, perhaps we see it all perfect, right? But Arjuna didn't have the luxury of doing the study the way we are doing. Perhaps in the spurt of the moment, when he heard it all for the first time, maybe he got a little confused. The examples I quoted, right? On one side he says, Mate sangaha astu akarmani. Let there be no attachment to you on akarma, on inaction. And very immediately he says, Durena hi avaram karma buddhi yoga he Dhananjaya. Buddhi yoga, no, from buddhi yoga, Durena hi karma avaram. By far is karma inferior, which means buddhi is better than karma. Of course, that's exactly what Arjuna is telling, right? So, if buddhi is better than karma, why are you pushing me to this gory work, gory action, gory war, the morbid kind of a state? Let's see what Aurobindo translation says. It says, Arjuna says, Oh Janardana, if you hold the intelligence to be greater than action, oh Janardana, then why do you appoint me to this terrible work? Very simple. But I'm changing some of these words because I find them a little funny in spoken English. It might be good for reading. Of course, this is an amazingly developed website. But again, right, as much as we do for everything else, we try to put in our own tint. We click on next now. Or when you click on next, we go to the next sloka. व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम् व्यामिश्रेणेव वाक्येन बुद्धिं मोहयसीव मे तदेकं वद निश्चित्य येन श्रेयोऽहमाप्नुयाम्. What does the Padacheda give us? We come down, scroll down a little bit. We see the Padacheda section. Here, Vyamishrena iva. Vyamishrena iva, Vyamishreneva. This is Guna Sandhi. A, E becomes A, like Maha, Isha, Mahesha, right? So, Vyamishrena iva, Vyamishreneva. Vakyena, Buddhim, Mohayasi iva, Mohayasi iva. This is another Sandhi, Savarna Dirgha. E and E becomes E. The Dirgha E. Me. Mohayasi iva, me. Tat ekam tadekam. So tu becomes the jashtva sandhi, we call it. Right? Tat ekam tadekam. Vada nischitya yena shreyaha aham shreyo aham shreyo aham. So in the first step, aha becomes O. The visarga becomes guna. Shreyaha aham shreyo aham. The next step, the A in aham goes hiding with an avagraha, which is the S mark, right? Shreyo aham, apnuyam. These are the words. When we put them back in the order, the prose order, the Anvaya gives us this, right? Tava, like, in bracket, your Vyamishrena iva vakyena me buddhihi mohayasi iva tat ekam nischitya vada yena aham shreyaha apnuyam. Right? There's a lot of entitlement through which Arjuna asks these questions. But again, he's asking a question, right? Though it doesn't state the question mark, it's a question mark. Right? What does it mean? For that, we need to click on dictionary. When we click on dictionary, we get to see. Tava is, I just added, yours. Me buddhihi mohayasi iva. My buddhi is mohayasi, is bewildered right now. Seems like bewildered. It's like bewildered right now. Tat ekam nischitya vada. Therefore, tell me one thing, nischitya, certainly, decisively. Vada, speak to me, tell me. Yena aham, by which I will. Yena aham, shreya apnuyam. Achieve shreyas. Achieve shreyas is well-being, right? Now, this is constantly Arjuna's worry. Till the 6th chapter, I think 6th chapter, he doesn't ask this. He takes us to another path. Till the 5th chapter, he keeps asking, what is good for me, what is good for me. Right? The first chapter also, he says, Nacha shreyo nupashyami hatva sajanamahavi. He himself concludes, I will not see anything great by killing my own people. The second chapter, he says, tell me what is shreya. Yachreyasya nishchitam bruhitan me shishyaseham shadhimam tvam pratannam. I think shloka number 7, he says, tell me what is good for me, what is shreyas for me. Third chapter says the same thing. Right? He keeps on asking Krishna, but doesn't listen to Krishna. That's another funny thing about Arjuna. Whenever Krishna says, do this, this is good for you, he's like, how can I? So that's Arjuna. I think most of us do that, right? That's fine. The nicer way, I think he's greater than, much greater than many of us. He's perhaps the best student to have got this download of Gita Charya's message. But let's see. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. Vyamishreneva Vakyena, right? So with your confusing words, and we saw where the confusion arises, right? Between shloka number 49 and 47, between shloka number 48 and 39. So there are some areas where it seems like, okay, conflicts, right? Let's see what Aurobindo translation says, interpretation. You seem to bewilder my intelligence, O Krishna, right? With your confused and mingled speech. Tell me then decisively that one thing by which I may attain the Shreyas, my soul's well-being, right? Again, some of us don't like the word soul, some things like that. So let's keep it as what is Shreyaskara for me. I think that simplifies a lot of things, right? Again, we saw what it is. So he's basically asking a question, which means Bhagavan has more to say. Arjuna is not done with it. See, Arjuna's these questions are the ones that really bring out the fine elements of the entire discourse. Like we spoke earlier also, shloka number 2 and 3 are more than enough to get the complete message of Bhagavad-Gita, right? The entire message of Bhagavad-Gita is given in that. Klaibyam Masmakamaha. None of us should bring down our Purushartha or, bring anything that prevents us from fulfilling the Purushartha. And what should be the Purushartha surrounded upon? Primarily being Arya Jushta, Swargakara, Kirtikara. Right? Go behind the path of being an Arya. Arya is who? Somebody who keeps fulfilling his duties. Right? Kartavyam acharet karyam akartavyam anacharet. Tishtati prakritacharya sa Arya iti vaismritaha. The one who keeps on doing his kartavya unflinchingly. That is an Arya. That's why we call Arya to be a noble person, right? Because English doesn't have another equivalent to it. But when you look at our own scriptures, we get beautiful definitions of each of these words. Right? An Arya is a Kartavya Sadhaka. You have to be a Kartavya Sadhaka. Do your duty very nicely. Be Swargapara. Keep on going higher and higher and higher and higher. Keep on fulfilling your maximum potential. Right? That's always about going higher and higher and higher. Okay, once we fulfill our duties, then keep on try to maximize our potential, then try to create a nice name in the order. Today, it's a travesty that we want the name first, then we will see others. Right? We want the name first. I mean, Kali Yuga, and we are in the perhaps very wrong part of Kali Yuga, but nonetheless, the message in Gita has come multiple times, but the message is the same. But what Arjuna's interventions are bringing, these questions are bringing, is more clarity around some of the concepts. That's why we call this chapter as Karma Yoga, because karma, the concept of karma, is very beautifully brought in here. We heard the word karma, mate sangaha astu akarmani, durena hi avaram karma. There are quite a couple of instances where we heard the word karma, but here I think we get to learn karma in a little more nicer way. Let's see. Right? This is the question. Krishna, you're confusing me. On one side, you say buddhi is better than karma, but you're engaging me in a very morbid kind of a karma. Your words are very mingled. Please help me understand. Decisively tell me your three. Shri Bhagavan-uvacha Lokesmin dvividha nishtha pura prokta maya nagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yogina. Lokesmin dvividha nishtha pura prokta maya nagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yogina. Let's see what the Padacheda gives us. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, no change. Loke asmin, that's what becomes Loke asmin. Loke asmin, dvividha nishtha, pura prokta, maya anagha, maya nagha. Jnana yogena, sankhyana, karma yogena, yogina. What does that mean when we put them into the prose order? Let's see the Anvaya. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bhagavan says, Hey Anagha, asmin loke dvividha nishtha maya pura prokta. Sankhyanam jnana yogena, yogina karma yogena. Right? So, confusion from Arjuna being addressed by Krishna now. Right? The first statement from Krishna. Let's see what it means. For that, we need to click on dictionary on the top, right? Hey Anagha, oh sinless. Agha is sin. Anagha is na agha, without any sin, right? Without any fault. Hey Anagha, oh sinless one, which is Arjuna. Asmin loke, in this world, vividha nishtha maya pura prokta. Two types of nishtha. has been spoken by me earlier. Right? Earlier can be from the beginning of time, or earlier can be from the beginning of the discourse of Bhagavad-Gita. Okay, but before, right? Before this, I have spoken two types of nishtha, two types of path, two types of faith, two types of belief, two types of whatever. I mean, nishtha is basically, the path, two systems of faith that I have given. Okay, Maya Prokta, Pra Ukta, right? Very nicely spoken by me. Sankhyanam Jnana Yogena, for people who are analytical in nature, for people who are discerning in nature. Like Sankhyanam. Sankhya is number, right? So analytical people. For such people, contemplative people, through Jnana Yoga. Yoga is again upaya, right? Yoga is upaya. One of the beautiful definitions of yoga is, while there is chitta vritti nirodha is also yoga. Samatvam is yoga. Karmasu, kaushalam karmasu yoga. There are many other definitions we have seen, but yoga in simplistic sense will agree to be upaya. So upaya through jnana, right? So jnana yoga, through jnana yoga for the analytical people, for the Sankhya, and for yogina, for the karma yogina, or for the enduring people, for the yogis, it is the karma yoga. I have given karma yoga for the yogis, and I have given jnana yoga for the jnanis. Right? I mean, there are many interpretations that will come. Like there are people like Priyavrata, like there are people like Janaka. There are different people that we keep hearing. Like these are the, though they are yogis, like though they are extremely learned. See, like people like Janaka, right? There are classical examples. Janaka was the person who, when Yajnavalkya enters his court, he can have the audacity to ask him, "Tell me, do you want wealth or knowledge?" Right? He can give both. Right? He's that apuryamanam achala pratistham samudram. He's that completely filled like a samudra. Right? He can give anything, but he didn't give up his responsibilities. Right? For 400 years, he did run the kingdom. Right? Having got everything in his sight, he kept on doing the work. So these are the karma yogis. They can't stay away from work even for a single moment. So for the yogis, and whenever we hear the word yogi, just the word yogi, I think it should be safely assumed that it is karma yogi, a person who is very, very workaholic in nature. Okay, that's the kind of an impression we repeatedly get. But nonetheless, right? So Krishna has simply answered, I have told you two things. Okay, from earlier, O Anaka, O faultless one, O sinless one, I have told two things before. One is the Jnana Yoga, which is for the Sankhya type people, the analytical type people. One is through the Karma Yoga, which is for the yogis, right, the striving people. Let's see what Aurobindo interpretation says. Right? It says, the blessed Lord said, Bhagavad. So this is nice, right? This website tries to bring every word, most of the words in its literal sense. Bhagavan Vacha is the blessed Lord said. In this word, twofold is the self-application of the soul that as I before said, right? O sinless one, that of the Sankhyas by the yoga of knowledge, and that of the yogins by the yoga of works. Very simple. I think I have told two things before this. Two types of path I have laid out before this. One is the Jnana Yoga for the Sankhyas, and one is the Karma Yoga for the yogis. Very simple. Let's keep it that way. Makes it much, much simpler. Now on the top, we click on the link called Next. We move on to Shloka number 4. Right? Na karmana manarambhan naishkarmyam purushošnute na cha sanyasana deva siddhim samadhigacchati. Padacheda. Na karmanam anarambhat naishkarmyam purushaha ashnute. Anarambhat naishkarmyam, anarambhan naishkarmyam. So there is an anunasika sandhi. Ta becomes na. Na cha sanyasanat eva. Sanyasanat eva, sanyasanad eva. There is a jashtva sandhi. Siddhim samadhi gacchati. What does the anvaya sound like? Purushaha karmanam anarambhat naishkarmyam na ashnute. Na cha sanyasanat eva siddhim samadhi gacchati. What does it mean? Sounded nice, but what does it mean? Let's see dictionary. Right? Click on the dictionary. You get to see Purushaha, a man. Karmana manarambha, by not starting any work. Arambha is beginning. Anarambha is by not beginning. Right? So karmana, of the work. by not having any beginning of any work, Naishkarmyam na ashtate. He will not enjoy Naishkarmya. Naishkarmya is selflessness, right? Actionlessness, or not actionlessness, but Nishkama Karmatva. Like, it's the selflessness. No, because he wants to, Arjuna's pity came because of others, right? Oh, for their sake, let me give up this, renounce this duties, and then go to the Himalayas, do the begging. So if you really want to be a Nishkama Karmi, you can't be a Naishkarmya, you can't attain Naishkarmya, you can't enjoy Naishkarmya by not doing any karma, right? Not karmanam anarambha, by not beginning any karma, you will never achieve Naishkarmya. Nacha, and also not sanyasanat eva, by giving up alone, by renunciation alone, eva, merely alone, truly. Siddhim samadhigachyati, you will siddhim sam adhigachyati, you will nicely acquire siddhi. You will never achieve siddhi by just doing sannyasa. You will never become nishkama karmi by not beginning any by not starting any work. So if you want to become a naishkarmya, if you really want to be a selfless person, you have to do a work, right? Work is inevitable. And if you really want to achieve something, you can't achieve anything by just giving up everything, by just renouncing everything, right? So do your duty. So again, the constant message will be here. Work is inevitable, boss. Pick up your sword, pick up your bow. Let's see what urban interpretation says. Not by abstention from works does a man enjoy actionlessness. Okay, let's call it as nishkama karma, naishkarmya. I think we should also give the holy Bhagavad-Gita website, because two websites are good to kind of provide that weight. In the daily chanting that we do at 6 o'clock in the morning, we refer to another website from Sri Mukundananda. I think two different perspectives are good, but nonetheless, we can all do that. Please listen to what I say more than what we see in the website, because I try to bring in some other flavor also. But yeah, by, by not abstaining from works, does a man enjoy Naishkarmya? Not by mere sannyasa, renunciation, does he attain Siddhi. Siddhi is not just perfection. Siddhi is also success, right? Siddhi is that final destination, whatever objective we are supposed to meet. And some adhigachati, not just adhigachati. Adhigachati is attainment. Some adhigachati, some is samyak, right? Some has a little extra qualifier to it. Right? Some adhigachati, right? Doesn't attain anything nice by just merely giving up everything, right? So you have to pick up something, which means even for a jnana yogi, there are works. That's the message that we get. Even if you want to become a bhikshantana kind of a person, you can't be completely insulated from performing action. You have to perform duties. Duties don't escape anyone, right? So that's the message we get. Let's move on. It's all about inevitability of the karma. I think we will perhaps see four more shlokas. It might take another 10 minutes or so quickly. And in the meanwhile, if anybody has any thoughts to share, any further refinement to whatever you have heard from me or through the website, if you have any questions, please do request for the mic access, come up on the stage. We have come to the conclusion of today's session. Apurvaji, you have a question? Good morning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. मूकोऽपि यत्प्रसादेन मुकुन्दशयनायते राजराजायते रिक्तो राघवेन्द्रं तमाश्रये. Jai Shri Krishna. Have a beautiful weekend, people. Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.